Nice to see you guys. And it's the first time I meet all three of you through a video chat. So it's just really exciting. And hi, guys. And first, I want to have you guys give us a little bit of introduction for each one of you. I know you already did in your course, but just in case some people haven't watched your course yet, will be great.
No worries. But Jason, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Okay, my name is Jason. I'm a photographer at TCE.
I'm Anna. I'm the founder at TC, so the Creative Exchange, and help a lot with them, but don't have a real title. I have my hand in a lot of different things.
And I'm Mizel. I'm the stylist at TC.
Cool. Nice to meeting you all. I know for this project, I see a lot of Jason and Mizel's hand in there. I watched the videos, and without further ado, we're going to dive in some of the questions. I know the Creative Exchange is a CPG brand, directly work with these brands, and I know you do a lot of photo shoots and you do some social media work and you do like a lot of different things with helping other small brands. Obviously, photography and the videos is pretty heavily a big part of your business too. Did you always worked? This is not a directly photo shoot question. Did you always worked with CPG brands, or have you later on discovered this is like our specialty?
Yeah, so when the company started, it was just me, and we started it in North Carolina. So the options of CPG brands were little to none, and North Carolina is huge in like healthcare and tech and finance and things like that. So I kind of found our niche there to be more small businesses. We worked with a lot of restaurants, a lot of smaller businesses, like one sold olive oil, one sold like gifts. So like kind of all over the place, but a lot of them either did involve food or products. They just weren't the brand itself. So when we moved to New York a few years ago, I think we got really involved in the food and beverage industry and all the like small businesses and accelerators here around that, and kind of found our niche that way of, they needed our services. We love food and beverage and CPGs in general. They're very fun products to work with. And I think we have found our kind of stride shooting smaller products. So that's definitely what we focus on now.
Cool.
But it did not start that way.
Yeah. That's amazing. And there's a follow-up question because you mentioned how you started. Have you seen, because since you've been working in this industry more than 5 years, especially in New York, it's such a big hub for CPG brands. Have you seen this industry involved in the last 5 years in terms of the packaging, like the marketing, and what are like the trends you have seen so far?
Yeah, that's a really good question actually, because when I first moved here, I think we got very again involved in like the accelerator programs that were helping food and beverage. And even within that first year, we saw several of them shut down, or at least in New York specifically. And then like a year or two later, the pandemic happened. So we did see like a lot of shifts from how and where these brands got their support and their funding from and things like that. You will notice if you work in this space, like, brands aren't just working with one agency, they're working with multiple, they're working with multiple photographers. So just between that and whoever the brand is, you see a lot of diversity in how they're marketing themselves through like paid specifically, or specifically through organic social, or how they work with influencers. They're kind of segmenting it. And I don't think it was like that way previously. And also when we first moved here, we got a few clients that we still work with to this day. And within the last year, I would say we've seen several of them rebrand. So I don't know if it's something that like they all started around a certain time and now maybe it's been 3 or 4 years and it was time to rebrand, but you probably see this all over the place, like more modern, very colorful. I think that packaging is so important for a brand to stand out on a shelf, that like is continuing to kind of see what your competitors are doing and try to do something opposite with that. So I think it's more so about that, but I was even talking to a friend who owns a branding agency, and they don't like going off trends. They want to make sure they're creating something very specific to that brand that feels like home for the brand, but also is going to stand out against the shelf. So trying to completely do the opposite of that, I think is kind of where things are going. And of course, you want your brand to stand out, like, and have longevity, and not have to rebrand all the so often. But I feel like I'm seeing a lot more colorful things pop up, a lot of illustrations kind of coming back than I was seeing previously.
Cool. That's good to know. I'm such a sucker for branding. I would
Yeah.
buy a product because the branding, but often I found out if they do have a really good branding I like, the product is not going to suck because I feel like they've invested enough in the branding and they know how important the branding is, and therefore they overall have a good quality of their product too. But that's just something I've experiencing. I'm sure there are probably some cases are otherwise out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for answering those questions. I was just always curious about like the trends, the marketing, and branding for other consumer packaging brands.
Yeah.
So this is next question is more about the photo shoot. I noticed that you guys have a templates and a deck that is for a short list. I wonder, do you guys always came up with the short list and present it to your clients, or do clients come up with a short list sometimes to you too?
Yeah. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So TC, we actually have a sister agency called No Revision, and depending on what the client subscribe to, we're going to create the shortlist for them, or they're going to provide the shortlist, and then based off that, we can modify it a little bit, but they will not see the final shortlist. It's a different offer, but for TC client, we come up with the shortlist. We usually have a call before where we really discuss what's the goal for the photo shoot, what's the overall color palette, and any other information that would be useful for us to create the shortlist. And then we make it so they can review it before we even schedule a photo shoot.
And one brand that does provide I'm just thinking of Acid League.
Yeah.
Acid League and a few of our other clients will provide like exactly what they want. We also have a what is it called? Like the prop deck, where we have a photo of every single color backdrop. We have all the props that we have, and they'll even pull that and use our own template to kind of fill out the form for themselves, because they do have art director on their team. So sometimes it's super collaborative like that, but for the most part, what she mentioned, like a lot of clients have no idea what they want. They usually just need something for social, or they want something to work for paid ads. So we usually have like a lot of creative freedom, other than of course budgets always come into play, and that's what restricts us. But yeah, I'm sure that's everybody's problem.
I think a lot of them actually use our online portfolio. They usually pull pictures from previous work we've done, and they say like, I want something like this, but maybe more with this tones, this colors, this type of lighting. So, but we also have clients who really just write a little paragraph for what the photo shoot should say about the brand, and that's it. And we work from there.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting. And when you have that initial call with your client, does everybody on the team has to be in that call, or is just one person to take that call?
Yeah, I think so because we do social media and other marketing for our clients, our normal onboarding call usually includes like a department head for each department. But if we're getting specifically into the photo shoot, I think like it's ideal to have everybody on the call, because obviously like I can say something to someone else, but I still translate that a little bit differently than it would have been on the call, even with notes and everything. I think like hearing something from the brand owner's voice, or somebody that works at the brand, is still going to feel different than like me describing somebody. Like if me trying to describe your brand to somebody else is going to be different than hearing it from you. So we do like to have as many people as possible on those initial calls, but I think like between our producer and stylist, those are usually leading the direction, and then kind of bringing Jason in to provide his input and direction, since he'll be doing all of the shooting.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great point that something always lost in translations. So you always want to go to that source of that person directly instead of go back and forth, be
Yeah.
the like the messenger in the middle. Um, I noticed that you used some rocks in the photo shoot for this photo shoot, and you mentioned that you can also paint rocks. I was just curious. Some people may curious too. If you would paint those rocks, what type of a paint would you use to paint those rocks?
Probably acrylic. I think
Mm.
acrylic is pretty versatile, so you can paint a lot of different materials with it. That's what I would go for.
I'm
Would
seeing
you
that.
use brushes?
So we have different types of, we have brushes and then we have the roll. I felt that for rocks, since the ones that we use for that photo shoot were on the smaller end, we would definitely use brushes.
Yeah.
Again, it really depends of what fill we want to go for. I think that one thing that I would have tried maybe is also filling a whole cup of paint and just dipping it to have like a clean finish.
Mm.
Um, but then you have to also think about how you're going to dry it, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm seeing,
Yeah.
I watched too many TikToks. I'm seeing everybody get the spray paint that also has a texture on it as well. And then I've seen people dipping like the glass stuff in a whole bucket of paint.
so
So
you can just do
very
half of
interesting.
it, like you
Mhm.
can create some interesting shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because I know my pieces works well with spray paint. Like I try to tell my customers if they want to paint, only use spray paint to get like a smoother texture in the surface. But I know for some other things like such as rocks, I feel like brushes may work just because you don't need a really smooth. You probably want to leave some of the natural texture on rocks anyways. Yeah, but like the dipping one is such a good tip. If you don't want to paint the whole thing, you just want to like edge off a glass or half of a color will be cool too. Oh, hi, Kat.
Yeah. She has to make an appearance.
I love that. How long do you normally spend on? I know it's probably depends on the project and then how lengthy the shoot is, but what do you try to normally spend on planning the shot list or like the planning stage of photo shoot? You probably do not want to drag it for weeks. Is there like
No,
an average? Yeah.
again, it depends, like you said, it depends on the project and also on the amount of information that the client is giving us to create the shot list. But I think that right now we're trying to have a cap at about 15 to 20 shots for an entire photo shoot, a day photo shoot, and a shot list. Typically, a shot list for about 15 to 20 pictures would take me around 3 hours to make.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're really focusing on elevating our portfolio. We want to make sure that every shot stands out and is really going to wow the client. So something around 3 hours for sure. Like I think that finding inspiration is a big part of it. Just looking for something different that they haven't seen before, but that they can relate to. There's definitely a balance to keep between wanting to do something very editorial, but also something that they understand, because at the end of the day, they're a product brand and they sell food and beverage. So sometimes, we can go for something that is too elevated. Otherwise, they wouldn't just feel comfortable
Yeah.
with it. So it's about
Yeah.
keeping this
The
balance.
And I
balance. Yeah.
think because we also do social media for most of the clients we work with, like our strategy team will also have some input of like, well, she might want to do something very clean and a lot of props, but the strategy and like what we're seeing work on paid ads is more UGC style. So I think like also knowing what the use case for is the client and having the social team with us can definitely dictate things as well. So between the creative team, the strategy team, and the client, it's like a battle to
Totally.
find the solution for everybody.
Totally. It's always a balance between if you wanted to do something really unique and but client doesn't want something super extravagant or super out there. But you kind of as a designer or stylist, you kind of have to educate the client a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
I think for some of our clients too, like because they're larger companies, we have we could have 5 or 6 people that have to approve a brief in addition to like a legal team. Almost everything we do with certain clients goes through a legal team. So they're usually the ones that kind of cut the fun sometimes. We know what we can and can't do with those types of things anyway. So we're a little bit better about that. But I think like, from all of us on the creative side, like trying to put our best effort forward, and then like having, when people work at a company, unless it's their own company, they usually don't see eye to eye, even though there's like maybe one strategy in place. So I think it's like, us providing our best foot of like, hey, this is why, like not only showing you here's what we want to do, but here's why we did it. Because half the time, like some people on their team might not understand that that's the best way to post something on TikTok, or we have to do this to work well on Instagram paid ads or whatever. So I think we do a lot of education with them as well.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And I'm glad that you mentioned for a day shoot, you normally only take on 10 to 15 images, because I feel like some of the beginner photographer who are just getting to like a product photography shoot or any photo shoot that involves more of like styling and the set and design to it, they think, oh, 10 images is really easy to take, but it's actually quite complex if you started doing different design to your backgrounds, or you have to shoot certain different product. So I think it's really important that to know 10 to 15 images for a day is actually quite a bit of images for that day. So do not over promise on your clients, because a lot of the time clients just I want to get like 100 images out of this shoot, and I want you to do it in a day, but they don't know how much of a workload that is. So it's also important to like set up the boundary. This is what we normally work with, 10 to 15 images a day. If you want more, you can book us for 3 days shoot or even a whole week shoot. So I think that's also really good thing you mentioned there. I want to ask something photography related. So I noticed that for the stop motion, the micro videos, it was a 4 frames, so 4 shots. Is that sort of a frame you normally work with, or do you shoot more shots for stop motions? Do you have like average or any tips you can share with frames and stop motions for people who are trying to make more stop motions?
So for stop motion, I guess first thing that you need a tripod, because like you have to stay in the same frame. But frame rate wise depends on the length of the stop motion that you want to have. If it's gonna be a longer video, then you might want to have more shots. But like regular moving images are usually like 24 frames per second. So anything below that would work. But sometimes people want this sort of like jumpy aesthetic so that they can make it more obvious that it's a stop motion. So it can be a less frames. But try to keep it, I guess. I try to keep it like for like 2-second videos, at least like 7, 8 images, and then I can just like I'll make them loop.
Exactly.
Yeah, with a lot of loops.
Yeah, there's another tip of like looping the images, because if you go back and forth, then you can sort of like have an effect of like having more shots, even though it's just like repeating the same motion.
Right. And then in terms of the format of the deliverables for the micro videos, do you normally deliver the MP4 format or the GIF format to the client, or both?
Usually MP4, because when you convert the images to GIF, then the color gets actually downgraded too much that they can use it. So like always export it to MP4, and then they can sort of like put it on loop, and then it'll look like GIF, but we're not actually like using GIF per se.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes to a GIF on social media actually.
Yeah, I don't think that
no.
would work.
No, it will not. I know like on social, on Instagram, you can't post GIF. It has to be MP4. But I wonder for the websites, if you deliver the MP4, do clients just post as a video and put it on the loop for their website?
Yeah, No one's actually asked us, but I feel like the people we do the website work for are a little more intuitive and probably just do it themselves. Because anytime we've been asked to deliver something, it's always been like MP4 or JPEG. But I know like when I upload stuff to either Google Sheets or Google Docs or our website, I do just convert it myself as well.
Right. Right. Okay. Cool.
A follow-up question related to the
Yeah, like that.
stop motion. We have a question from Mel. She's asking why when she's importing stop motion as a GIF or versus an MP4 video, the color of the background changes or a color changed. So why was that happening?
Well, GIF format actually only allows about like 256 color palette. So like when the color is downgraded, then it might not have the colors that you initially wanted. So it sort of like shifts the color entirely. So when you see GIF convert images, you usually see like if there's like change of color, like gradient, like it's more like not smooth. So this is the format of the file. There's a limit.
Yes. So you would just always use MP4 instead of using GIF to converting into MP4.
If it's only like 2 images and you're just like converting to GIF, you might have a chance to like save all those colors, but usually no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but I think like between that and other ways you can compress images or videos, like there's always going to be something that gets you just have to kind of give that up, is like something's going to happen. So I think we always try to provide the highest quality file there is, and if they can convert that to whatever they need, they still have that base video that we delivered to pull from and continue to convert to whatever they need.
Yeah, totally. Is that the only follow-up questions, Erica?
For the stop motion, that's the only question that they were asking.
Okay, and this next question is for both stylist and the photographer. I know you guys did a dainty jewelries, which is very hard to shoot in my experience. Do you guys have any tips both on shooting day or like both on planning and the shooting and the post-productions for in terms of shooting something so small and dainty? Could it be photography wise, or could it be styling wise, or could it be like the post editing side of it too?
From a styling perspective, I think that whenever you shoot products like this, you should use gloves. That's a good tip. It's just because you want the photographer to do the least edits possible. You don't want to give him too much work. So fingerprints, you might not see them, when you look at them directly, but then on the photo, because it's so sharp, you're gonna see the fingerprints. And then I guess that fish line is also like a must-have for this type of photo shoot. I think that for this one, what was challenging was the fact that the jewelry was slipping a little bit on the moudelier prop. So we had to, you can use putty for this because putty would show. So had to stabilize it with fish line on both sides, make sure that it's straight and it holds together and it doesn't slip off the prop. What else did we run into? There's honestly some concepts about this photo shoot that we came up with, and then you try to execute the concept and you realize that it doesn't work. So, and that's really the life of a stylist and a photographer, that you can have the best shot lead in the world. At the end of the day, it's very important to look at the product before the day of the photo shoot, just to familiarize yourself with the size, especially when it comes to jewelry. Some rings, for example, can appear to be thicker on a picture than they actually are in real life. So it's good to have this prop day before the photo shoot, and then yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work. I know that we changed the one that is actually the micro video that we did. It wasn't exactly the concept that we came up with at first, and then we ended up changing it because we just wanted a better ratio between the prop, the Moodle prop, and then the product. And I think that what really made it work is the fact that we made the prop look very abstract. So we didn't want to show the entire prop because it's big and it works with like with bigger product, like a shoe, like a can of something, a bottle. But for us, because it was such tiny rings, we decided that maybe just emphasizing the hole in the prop, and have the ring come out of it, it would be more abstract, more interesting. So I guess it's about seeing a product or a prop from different angles, different perspective, and not be afraid to use it in a way that is not really designed for, maybe, or that is not so intuitive.
Yeah, I think for styling wise, for me, like a piece, if it's not the product, it's supposed to supporting the main star, the hero of the show. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to show like the whole supporting piece in your set. It could be like a little piece of it. It could be like just an angle or one side of it, even just like a surface of it. It doesn't matter. Like when you styling or design a set, I think most important is the hero of the shot. The other things are all like supporting products or supporting pieces over there, and it doesn't have to show the whole thing like what you did with your shoot. It's only like a part of it. It's perfect for me. But I will like Jason talk about what are some of the tips or things that people should pay attention to it when it comes to shooting a such dainty product.
So I guess you have to use a right type of lens, first of all. You could either use the zoom lens or whatever, but I think I prefer using a macro lens, probably like 100mm macro, so you can get actually like really close to jewelry item. And we didn't actually do it this way, but like when I shoot just the jewelries by itself up close, they're usually not everything in focus because it's really shallow in depth of field when you're using a macro lens. So like you sometimes have to do a stack focusing. So you focus from the, maybe like usually the stone is in the front. So you focus on the stone and then like change the focus. And then in the post, you sort of like stack all those images and everything focus. That's usually how it works. Yeah, but like for this one, we didn't do it that way because we're actually including all these props. So it wasn't much of a larger type of like crop, so different, I guess.
And I because you're shooting a lot of packaging, so do you often have to compose, say if you have a 3 product here and they're all have labels, so I assume client probably want, oh, I want my label words sharp, but sometimes if it's not in the even field, there is depth between product. Do you always use that technique in you shoot like essentially several shots and focus on different items and later on compose all the images together to make sure everything's sharp, the labels are sharp in the final images?
Yeah, that's that too. And also like I try to open up my aperture a little bit larger than like around like 9 or 10 at least, so I can get image and also like enough depth of field. Unless you want this like a bokeh like effect, so like we just like focus on one thing and everything goes out of focus. I usually like put it at like 10 or 9, so that you can have enough sharpness to it. But like like too much of depth of like product, at least like 3 rows, and I sometimes do like stack focusing for that too.
Yeah, that's such a good techniques. I feel like that's something it's very different with product photography. Your aperture actually needs to be high most of the time because you need to see things sharp. But when you shoot portraits or events, you actually want that shallow thing and you want the person to be focused, everything to be blurry. So I had to learn that at the beginning of styling for jewelries. You have to shoot differently, treat it very different compared to when you shoot people. But that's just something I found out is very interesting, even though it's both a photography, but it's such different techniques you have to use. And I have a couple more questions. So this one is for where to thrifting the props. I feel like I get that question a lot, and everybody get that questions. And I think in your course you mentioned the Target, Amazon, thrift stores, rentals. I wonder if there's any good rental store for New York area that you recommend some of the listener who might be in New York area would want to learn more about it.
So I know when you want to rent, it depends what prop we're talking about. For example, is it a big photo shoot for a fashion brand where we want to have maybe furnitures? In that case, for example, there's this amazing store in Brooklyn called Lycan, and they're good friends of mine. They have amazing secondhand furnitures. It's very well curated, and they will let you rent it for a photo shoot. But there's also in Brooklyn, I know that I love this store called Reuse America. It's in Bushwick, I believe, and they have pretty much everything you're looking for. It's vintage, but I know, for example, it wasn't part of TC, but I was styling a photo shoot for a music artist who wanted like an entire wall of plates, car plates. And I went to Reuse America, and I think I rented like 200 car plates, and I would have never found that anywhere else. It's just when you look for something that is more character, that is not brand new. Otherwise, I think that buying and returning is definitely a good solution. I mentioned Target, Amazon. There's a lot of cute stores like H&M Home, for example, has some cute accessories, or Urban Outfitters, and the return policies are also very good, so you can just use it once and then send it back. That way you don't just clutter your space with props that were meant just for one photo shoot.
There's also, I'm forgetting the name right now, there's several prop houses for like smaller things in Manhattan that you can rent from. I feel like one is literally called Prop House, but it might be H-A-U-S.
They actually have a website. I think it's Prop House.
Yeah.
I never use Prop House just because I think that it's for higher end brands who have more budget. I think that our clients, they're kind of like on a medium tier. So like Prop House is definitely like very design furnitures or objects.
I haven't done this as much in New York, but when I was in North Carolina, like there's so many small boutiques and things, I would just email them or talk to the owner and say, hey, we're doing this shoot. Like, let's say we're working with a makeup or jewelry brand, I would go talk to a small clothing store, and they'd let you check out clothes for shoots. We used to do that. I worked at a boutique in college, and people would come and do the same thing. We would just lend it to them, and they usually either provide the photos to us or tag us in the brand social.
Yeah, I think that's always a really good way to do a trade or something beneficial for everybody. Yeah. Cool. Next question is, I noticed you have a tray for putting away the jewelries on set. I think that's such a good tips to have, because often for that particular shoot, since it's for very small jewelries, but I feel like often on set there's chaotics and you often lose things, you don't know where it is. So I saw that was such a good thing to have, just have like a tray or some sort of a designated place to put after you're done shoot, and to put away things in their own area. So do you always implementing in every shoot, if you don't shoot small jewelry, say if you shoot like a can product or small bottles, do you always, what do you use to organize your set?
It depends. I think that we have another table right next to the one that we use, for the backdrop. I always try to have a secondary table where I can put all the product, and then just separate the one that we already shot and then the one that we need to shoot.
We have, I think like that's probably the smallest thing that we have. So everything else is pretty large and like we don't have containers for, but we do have we have like a prop closet and then we have a product closet. So every client has several bins and we label them with their products in it it's one of those Uline ones that everybody has. So
I love Uline.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of money with them.
No, but I think that's it. And then, on the shot list, we always make sure that we mention which product specifically we're shooting. So I'm always going to compare the name. I know, for example, we work for this skincare brand, and they send us like hundreds of products.
Wow.
And they all have a similar branding, it's like very black and white. So it's something that definitely the stylists need to pay attention to, is like compare the name. But that's also something that you need to do even prior to shooting, like just organize like per shot what we're shooting for shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it goes like pretty smoothly.
Yeah, so I think that's what I was trying to ask. Do you always organize each shot before the shoot, so you know what are the items in each shot, so it saves more time during the shoot day?
But it's also the way we try to save time is also per backdrop, because what takes actually quite some time is to change the backdrop.
Right.
So I usually make the shot list, and then I say like backdrop is gonna be, I don't know, like blue, then red, blue, green, blue, and before we shoot, I actually put all the blue shots together, and then the red, and then the green. And then based off that, I pick the product. I think that now I'm so familiar with our client's product that I wouldn't say like I'm the most organized, but I know exactly like what I'm looking for. And what really saves time is just actually shooting everything on blue. It's like, what can we do on this backdrop so we don't have to change, not only to change the paper, but to cut it. I think it's also a matter of saving, paper, resources. I'm all about reusing stuff when we can. So
yeah, I think that's a great tip to kind of work more efficiently according to the backdrops. I wonder if you guys ever worked with larger budget of a client that you actually do test shots ahead of a time, not during the shoot day. You play with the set and then you actually testing the light or the location, that type of or is that not something you have been practicing?
Yeah, we've done that in the past. If the client has a budget and like we'll talk about doing test shots and everything prior to that, it's definitely something they pay for. I'm not we don't do that, and, like they decide if they want to work with us or not. So we definitely get discounted rates for that. So it's not like they're paying for full production, but for the test, it's definitely a discounted rate. But we've done that in the past.
And have you found out that it's really helpful to actually do a test shoot before?
I'm trying to think of the ones that we've done in the past. I think like all the test shoots we've done went well. It was just like, again, the clients with like larger teams that they like can't fully visualize things from the brief, or who wants to really see that. So I think everything's been fine. I think more so of like, if Mizelle's putting together a shot list and it's unrelated to the client, like if something we never tried before, we might want to go in and test that to make sure we know how to do it. If it's something we've not done before. But I think, as Mizelle mentioned earlier, like a lot of our clients understand our work and have seen our portfolio, so they kind of know what to expect or what they're getting. So it's not as much like a gamble as something like that might be different than anything in our portfolio currently.
Yeah, so basically I'm getting at, if you're taking on a client and everything you shoot is somewhat within the experience that you've done it, and you know you can do it and you can commit it to it. If there's something really out of the box, and you would have probably wanted to test it out before you committed to that specific shot.
Yeah. We also implemented, right now we're trying to do something where once a month, we allocate one day to trying new things, new concepts, new techniques for shooting. So then we can offer that to our clients.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip to to have to. Do you, at this stage of your business, do you actually approach to any clients, or do you already have a really good amount of work that you don't have to approach to any client? They just come to you.
Yeah, right now we do not approach anybody. We definitely have enough projects to work on right now. There has been times in the past where we've reached out to brands we really loved and we're like, oh, this would be really cool to work with them. And you know, there's clients that have reached out to us and either like the conversation just ends or they never follow up with you. So sometimes I'll have them like, hey, like this person reached out to us, but they never messaged back. We actually had a success story from this. So I was like, this is with Creative Crew though. So I had one of our people create a TikTok and I was like, I'm just going to send that to the brand to see if they respond. And they just signed with us for a retainer because somebody got sick on their team and dropped the ball. But then like, of course, I sent a TikTok right as they're thinking about wanting TikTok. And now we just signed them to do consistent work. So I think we'll definitely do stuff like that. Like I hate when, you know, you have a good conversation with somebody, but like you either get ghosted or whatever. So I definitely try to revive that. But right now, no, we definitely have not been reaching out to anybody.
Yeah, I think that's also a good thing to always follow up, because sometimes people just get life gets crazy and you do need a one or two be more proactive about it. And especially it's much easier to onboarding a client who already have a previous conversation with you than just like completely new starting from scratch.
I think like photographers, it's great to reach out to clients you really want to work with, but for us, because we're doing the social media and we work on more so monthly retainers, like we already know 6 months from now that we're going to have certain shoots that are happening because we're already a retainer for that. Yeah.
Since you are also a social media agency, I'm gonna ask some social media questions.
I think sorry, I don't know if you saw it. Priscilla in the chat had a question about props. I can answer this one before we change the subject. So Priscilla asked, do you charge for props that you already own, and do you include them in the initial quotation? And if there is a need to purchase for more, how does that work? So when we initially give a quote for a project, we'll put in we're gonna spend up to X amount of dollars on props. Now, the props that we already own are kind of free range for them, but when we charge them for, you know, our studio, like, because we already own a studio, so it's not like we're renting one and have to charge by the hour, and then on top of that, some props. We just kind of have like, oh, whatever is in our studio is in this price, and then we do go ahead and include like, oh, we assume we're going to need at least this much amount of money for props. Like we just some brands you never know how much you want, but we just quoted one brand that we'd have to build out something. So we went ahead and like looked up how much those things would cost. And then sometimes after like Mizelle or whoever makes the brief, she'll say, oh, if I really had like $100 extra, I could do this much more. And we'll present that to them, see if they're cool with that. To see if we can get that extra budget. Which usually they say yes, because it's never like a crazy amount more, because we try to stick within budgets. But
and it's the same thing with models. You know, sometimes brands are like, oh, I want one model for this, especially when it's, for example, like a drink brand. You know, drinking is like a social activity, and sometimes I design the shot list and I'm like, oh, it would work way better if there was actually two people, you know, and we can really shoot different interaction between those two people. And usually if you explain it and you have like cohesive arguments for, you know, for your case, like they're always gonna say yes.
I think by the point, they pay for whatever the shoot is, and then like we say it's going to elevate it so much more, and it's like, oh, $200 more to do that. Sure.
Cool. I think that's also a great tip to always try to including something a little bit more outside of their budget. If they say yes, then that would be great. If they say no, you tried, you've asked.
I'm sure also, I've paid for people to, and this kind of maybe helps Priscilla, but like if people say no to not wanting to pay for something extra, if I know it's something we can reuse in the future and it'll be helpful for other clients, I'll definitely just go ahead and buy it, because I think there's more value in having that, and it's more so investing in our stuff, because for the props that they get, like we're not giving that back to them. Like that kind of does balance out what we have that we're already using that they didn't pay for versus what we're buying to use for them. Now because we work with a lot of food brands, most of it's groceries that like nobody's getting back. But there has been clients that like, mainly some food clients that we worked with that wanted a very specific like chef's knife in the video, or the Le Creuset pots and stuff. Like a client will buy that and then take it back because those are like hundreds of dollars and they can obviously
Yeah.
but otherwise it's a lot of small things we might already have, or like a lot of groceries, stuff like that.
Cool. So in terms of social media questions, I know you do all different social media. You do Instagram, you do TikTok. Do you also work with Pinterest as well?
Yeah, we have a couple accounts that we have Pinterest on. We use a lot on the paid side because just of where our clients' budgets are at, what their goals are. It's a lot more on the paid. We do LinkedIn, Twitter, starting to get back into Snapchat, especially on the paid side. We're seeing a lot of other brands have a lot of success there. So we're diving into that. But I would say right now, most of our clients are focused on Instagram and TikTok.
And then when you do paid and it's done by in-house, like you actually run the ads for it too.
Yep, we do all the media buying, run the ads, create the visuals, literally everything.
That's cool. Out of curiosity, Instagram, so Facebook and Pinterest ads, what are like the converting rate between those two platforms?
Yeah, I think Pinterest, that's a great question. Pinterest, I can't really remember what the conversion rate off the top of my head is. I think for a click, it's more similar to what Google ad prices are. So it kind of depends on obviously your market, and could be between like, you want to get as low as possible. If we're getting like under 10 cents per click, that's amazing. But depending on the market and niche and who we're targeting, it could be like 50 cents or something like that. I can't remember the exact conversion rate for that. For Instagram and Facebook, I would say that like if you're spending under like $3,000 a month on those platforms in paid ads, then you have a much slower growth and return rate. But if you're spending over $3,000 a month on ads there, you're seeing a better return rate. Now, all of that has changed recently because of the iOS update and the privacy issues. So that's been a little bit different, but I think like your goal is seeing like 3.5 to 4 return on ad spend. So like for every dollar you spend, you're making $4 is definitely the goal. But you definitely need to be above that like $3,000 monthly threshold. And every client is seeing a ton of different numbers because of the privacy updates. And certain clients don't have email lists for us to retarget, and then others do. So that makes it a little bit easier. But TikTok, we're starting to do a lot of ads on TikTok right now, and brands and their case studies are seeing really good conversions there as well with the price point, because it's very similar to when Instagram launched. Price points and barrier to entry on Instagram was super low, and now it's a lot higher. But like TikTok's very new, so it's a great time to start running ads there because you could see like, it's just like anybody can almost go viral at this point on TikTok. You can kind of have that same success on the paid side.
Yeah, so what am I gathering, like if a new brand who has limited of budget on spending ads, would you almost recommend them to get into TikTok or Pinterest before Instagram, because Instagram's just so saturated at this point?
Yeah, I think like, let's say they have under that $3,000 budget. The first thing we're going to talk about is your goals, because if your goal is to make sales, like, and you're a new brand and nobody knows you, we have to really build for like a couple months off brand awareness and then try to funnel into sales. We can't just do everything at once. So that definitely is a part of the discussion. But I think like, if one thing brands are kind of hurdling over right now is they got really used to being very curated on Instagram, and that's definitely not the case at all on TikTok. So we have to do some convincing there to make them comfortable with that. And then once we can, I think TikTok, like to find your sweet spot, is doing a lot and very quickly. So if they can have the budget to get the videos created, I think that is a great place to spend your ad money because, again, of the lower price points. But if you can't invest in that visual work, then I would say, maybe we'd rather run less ads with very curated, nice videos or content for Instagram for brand awareness.
Yeah. That's really good to know. I've never run ads on TikTok, but I definitely see people, brands are doing more and more. I don't
Yeah.
know how much they're actually converting on TikTok, but that's just something I'm always curious about, people who are run ads
Yeah.
on TikTok, if they're actually converting. But from your experiences, it seems like they're doing okay
Yeah,
compared
yeah,
to
I think it's
Instagram.
still a learning curve because all of our clients are very different. Like one client, we're about to create a second account because one thing about TikTok is if you're a brand, you can't use a lot of the trending sounds. You can only use commercially licensed sounds, which limits us quite a
Mm,
bit. I'm about to test. They already have a brand account. I'm about to test creating a secondary account without the brand limitations to just see what we can do. But if you don't have the brand account, you can't run ads. So we're gonna keep both and have kind of an experiment going.
yeah. And then another questions about crossing different platforms, run paid ads or just content overall. Do you have a system that in place you can repurposing some of the content? Obviously, I know like the TikTok you use more of probably the behind the scene or more of a not super high quality type of content, and on Instagram and Pinterest you probably need a higher quality for content. I'm wondering if you have a system in place because you are running so many different ads in different platforms. How do you like recycle some of the content or repurpose some of the content from like one piece of content?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously ideal to have different content for different channels, just
Mm,
because like they all have a different type of ad or size that they need to be, and something's gonna work better on Instagram versus Pinterest. But of course, people don't have, not everybody has very high budgets to just be doing that and creating very specific content. So I think like the biggest difference is like the visuals we create for Instagram can easily be translated to Facebook. Pinterest, we might be adding graphics or stuff like that on top of it. But for
mm,
TikTok, it's very different. Sometimes our TikTok content we repurpose on Reels. But I think that's kind of to our strategy team to know like, where we can play. And I think it's really big. We're really big on analytics. So like, oh, we posted the
mm,
same photo on all these accounts. How did it perform? And we kind of keep track of
mm.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that make a lot of sense, that always look into the data and probably changing your strategy um, based on the data presents.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's all I have today. I know I like asked so many different type of questions, but I felt like since even though the course didn't cover the social media aspect of your business, but I feel like since you're here, we may as well ask some of those
Yeah.
questions because some of the small business owner might be interested in running a paid ads in the future. It's just good to kind of get a little bit of a insight from an agency like you working with so many different brands. And I know myself, I'm interested, oh, maybe in the future, I will do a little bit ads on TikTok. So now I
Yeah.
know, the expert, where to find people who can help me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to just wrap
Yeah.
up our conversation today, is there any tips? It doesn't really matter if it's a photography, videos, or social media. Is there any tips you can give some of the listeners, or any trends you've been noticing lately you think people should start pay attention or implementing in their business?
Yeah, well, Erica actually just posted a question in the chat, so we could maybe
Sure.
push that question as this. I'll read it. This is one for you. I also wanted to know more detail the setup. They use only one strobe light, and which one and what camera and setting they use. So I think you mentioned your lens earlier, but can you talk about the light and the camera and other settings for that project?
For one that we did.
Mm-hmm. If you remember.
One stroke.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I brought for that shoot. I actually brought one more ring flash just to like make the gemstones pop a little. But most of the time I actually use one single light because we're shooting. First of all, we're shooting small products. We don't need a lot of lights. And then also like secondly, if you use like multiple lights, then the shadow gets a little bit like mixed up. So you get like
Mm.
shadows on one item, and it's a little bit like confusing for whoever views the image. So if you need a little fill on the other side, sometimes you can use a bounce card. But I try to keep it simple. But you can change the type of light with just one light. It can be a really harsh light with a really harsh shadow, or you can just use like a softbox or umbrella to make a little bit of bounce, and then make a soft shadow. And then also the distance of the light changes the shadow as well. So you might want to think about that. Also like height of the light. So yeah, you just have to look at the like shadows most of the time.
And what kind of camera are you using?
I'm using for this one, I'm using 5D Mark III, which is like an older version of Canon. But you can use whatever the camera. I think the camera these days are they're pretty much like have high megapixels, so like you don't have to worry about it too much. But then the lighting is more important than the camera, and then also lens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, always ask about, oh, like, what kind of camera should I use? But honestly, like cameras are fine. Whatever you have is okay. Just use the right type of lens, and then also the lighting. I think lighting is the most important part.
Yeah, I agree. Also, you guys have a guide downloadable in the course, which is located on the right hand side. If you wanted to look for more of the details, I think you have like all the camera gears and
Yeah.
a lot of good tips and guides in that downloadable doc. And if you just want to have a piece of thing on hands, make sure you download that as well. All right, I think that answered her questions.
Yeah.
So to wrap up the video, I think if you have been noticing some sort of a trends you've been seeing on socials, or any tips or anything we should be paying attention to, anything you would like to share?
I think this is between social media strategy and the visual side. Is the brands that people are really talking about are the ones that are personifying their products. So like Recess and Starface does a really good job at that, of every flavor or SKU that they have, or Starface kind of like with their one main SKU or product. How they're shooting it makes it seem like it's a person, and that they have their own tone of voice when they're writing their content. Those are the brands that people talk about nonstop. And I think like their visual content usually is very much heavy on the graphic side. There will be some photography, but that's like all people talk about right now. And I think like that's a really interesting lane to go in, and kind of can help people understand from like, you know, if it's a drink, you kind of need to buy it to try it to see if you'd like it, but how can we basically sell it without someone having to taste it? So how do you do that? You do that through visuals, you do that through descriptions of the product. And I think giving them their own personality can kind of help continue to sell that, especially if I connect better with the tone and personality of one of the flavors versus another. So that's been really interesting to talk to people about.
Yeah, I like that. It almost made their product have a life on their own. So
it really does.
yeah, I like that. I'm noticing one trend, but I don't know if you have paid attention to it. I've noticed that people are starting using like just super micro influencer, or just like really everyday people you see on the street, and to do reviews, and they use that directly on their ads or directly on their website page. When you see instead of just product images, they always have a person like me wearing their stuff and talking about, basically giving reviews. Do you think that's something you will see brands start implementing more? Or do you think that's a good strategy? Is that eye-catching because this is real people?
Yeah, that's definitely a part of our ad strategy for all of our clients. Like we definitely have content like that. And we definitely focus a lot on working with micro influencers as well. So that's something that has been performing and working well for our brands. For TikTok, I will say, you know, if we post a video to our brand's account that a user made and they're talking about a product, it won't do as well versus like that person posting on their account, because it's coming from their voice and not seeming as selling through the brand. So I think we'll definitely continue to see more brands doing that. And I think that's definitely like how we're focusing and growing on TikTok as well, is more so not using our own account as that, but using influencers or micro influencers. And I think at the end of the day, like, again, with the virality that you can have on TikTok, being a regular user is really cool, because we don't have to pay somebody with a ton of followers to get the same situation, yeah, from just a general person.
Yeah, I like that. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate
Yeah.
all three of you, and thank you for generously sharing all the tips and insights about photography and the social media and just all things creative. I really appreciate it, and I think people who are listening or who will be listening as a recording will be really appreciated as well. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope you guys have a great day. Well, I may, knock on your door in the future, be like, hey, like, can we talk about like
we'll be here
some
already.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.